the last in our relay. We were, at one point when we were talking with the artists many months ago, and there was a kind of joke about which point you came in the relay, if you were first, second, or third. And some of the artists related to birth order, if you were the first child, the middle child, or the baby, and how that informed how you responded or interacted with it. So, John, you're the baby today. So the first question is, what comes up for you in your first encounter with the whole fabric of artworks?
Well, I'm going to depart from what others have said, and that's predictable because I'm an art historian, and others hold different ground here. My first response, engagement, with the exhibition was coming up the stairs and seeing Elizabeth Mackenzie's equation right in front of me. And so the experience of the exhibition was a succession of encounters and mini encounters. So my first encounter with that was, suddenly a quickening of the pulse. You cut open a slice of orange and you smell it, and there's something really intense, but it doesn't last. So it was an aesthetic response, a powerful aesthetic response. That wasn't the same case with Evan's piece, because that's a time-based piece. And so there was a different kind of responses there, and so it was throughout the whole exhibition. Elizabeth's was that very powerful response, aesthetic response. But there were a variety of aesthetic responses. In some, there was hardly an aesthetic response at all to the various works as I went through them, because they required getting close, reading, backing up, moving in again, altering the view, perhaps speaking to Ursula, with whom I was going round with at the time, until the whole thing added up or didn't add up. And it seems to me this is the way I have always gone through exhibitions, which is it's a series of encounters that encounters, puzzlements, deep excitement, backing off, and in the end, coming through. That was not my view. And in the end, wanting to spend more time with the exhibition, feeling that there was a great deal of it that I had not grasped, even after much reading and looking. So when I came back on yesterday at 5 o'clock with just about everybody that's here around here and a couple of other people, another layer was added to that experience. It was actually a very, very important layer, because I went away more puzzled about what I'd seen and trying to put the bits and pieces together on the first encounter than after the second. And my guess is that my experience of going to the exhibition had some parallels with those of the artists and the physicists coming together, having conversations, moving away, emailing each other, and working through things according to their needs, their desires, their wants, and their interest in the overall exhibition and how they wanted to participate in it. So that's my response to that.
That's the first encounter.
The first encounter.
The next question is, given your research interests, are there political implications in the work presented in the exhibition?
Yes. Works of art, the production of art is a social endeavor, and all social endeavors are political. So all art is political. All forms of expression are political. I can say more. I might say something about physicists. So, for instance, the work of, was a wonderful term you used, Tim, quantitative cosmology. But before the quantitative cosmology, of course, there were nuclear figures and particle physics, and as much as those are driving abstractly to answer experimental problems without a political realm around them, we still have the Manhattan Project. So they are political as well. And the degree to which they are directly political is always changing. It is the same with art. There are not a lot of directly political works of art. I could make the case, but I'm not going to say it, that Marina's Dirty Clouds is political. Somebody might make the case. that the work of Dirty Clouds is political because it deals with environmental degradation. She uses bitumen as one of her materials in the paint. That brings up oil production. That brings up climate change. That brings up degradation. But that would be, I think, to misunderstand the work, because the work works on a much broader canvas. No, she's working on wood, a much broader platform in a much broader arena than that, because it's looking at dispersals and flows, annihilation over much longer periods of time, and much less directly than just the oil patch. And it seems to me that finally there's a kind of marvelous entropy that is present in the whole body of work. So that's not directly political. I do work directly with political work sometimes, so that I'm including in an exhibition I'm doing shortly called Bombhead, a work by Robert Rauschenberg, and there's a poster for peace there that's directly political, meant to be political. It can be read as political, but it can be read as all sorts of other things as well. We wouldn't care about it now if it weren't aesthetically powerful and convincing. Nancy Sparrow has a work in the exhibition called Bomb Victims and Blood. That is directly political. She has 6 works in the exhibition, directly political. She's doing it at the time of the Vietnam War, and as many of you know, at the time of the Vietnam War, as she knew, there were discussions in America and the United States about whether to use the atomic bomb during that war for a second time in Asia. In fact, and it was the 4th discussion on the matter. It was only used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was considered in Korea during the Korean War. It was considered during the Formosa crisis in 1956, and then considered again during the Vietnam War. Always by an American government. Always by an American government. And she is American, so that's the political work. To repeat what I said, all work is political, but some work is more political than others.
To be continued on that. What are your thoughts on how the topic of antimatter is taken up by the artists in this project?
There's been good discussion on this already. Again, I want to refer to a work of art. I'll go back to Elizabeth. I didn't know it when I was climbing the stairs. I saw the equation. I didn't know it was the 1929 equation. It blurred, and I noticed almost immediately that it was mirrored. It was Brecht that said, art does not reflect life, coming back to the political, except by using mirrors. So here Elizabeth has used mirrors, a mirror, and blurred the edges. And what she's doing in talking about antimatter, which the label tells us, so I didn't get this immediately, but label or work on the wall tells us she was having a great deal of trouble and anxiety trying to grasp as a concept, as a physical phenomenon. Am I right about that, Elizabeth? Yeah. There's also, I would say, in Elizabeth's work, another kind of mirroring that goes on in Narcissus mirroring. It even makes me want to go to Deleuze a little bit, but we won't. Antimatter, that's as much as I have to say about it.
Okay, shall we, how's about, here's this first question. How is art informed and enhanced by interdisciplinary thinking and making?
That is almost forces me in a Deleuzian way to repeat. Interdisciplinarity is present the way politics is in art. I view artists as amongst the most interdisciplinary practitioners of any discipline. When an artist needs something, as far as I've seen, they do not hesitate to get in touch with whomever can help them. They will, they'll pick up the phone more easily. They will, say they're making something. Artists I know are always going off to see a tile maker. Because why are you going to a tile maker? Well, I need it for this. They're constantly going off in different directions, all kinds of artists, whether they are seemingly just a painter in a very limited sphere, a limited arena, or something that is much more. And that kind of, they're learning from other disciplines, and in a sense that's interdisciplinary. That seems to me to be highly interdisciplinary. I was surprised, I remember this, I was in the United States at this time, and Columbia College, at the University, not the University of Chicago, but in Chicago, formed an interdisciplinary art program. Is that a very well-known art program? It probably is. And the idea was, and I remember thinking at the time, and this was before interdisciplinarity had become a buzzword in the academy, and I remember thinking, well, why would you do something like that? Art is interdisciplinary in so many different ways. Why would you want to have, I mean, that's, it's sort of, it's oxymoronic, not oxymoronic, it's just it's an unnecessary repetition. But that was before, this was the 1980s, before, it was a time when art was in heavy need, maybe it is at all times, of new forms of experimenting, crossing over media, going out of the silos that have been set up by Greenbergian modernism and other diktats. And so it was, made more sense at that time, but it makes less sense to me now. Well,
we actually just finished reading your collection of Greenbergian texts for our Humanities class. So the notion of medium is really salient in my mind. And when I go through this exhibition, I find that the dominating medium is collaboration itself. And I wonder, historically, has this medium, collaboration, influenced our historical discourse?
There's been a great deal of discussion about collaboration. How much of it has theorized in terms of a medium, I don't know. And others may be able to answer that better. But there has, I mean, it is an ongoing and rich discourse.
Thank you. Any other questions for John?
Well, I'm glad I was so well understood.